Love is the most powerful emotion. It's one of the core values of my company. So we really focus on making sure that we love the people we work with, the clients we work with, the kind of stuff that we do, because that just makes it worthwhile.
Aloha, welcome to another episode of Love What with Audrey Weilai, where I ask my friends and mentors what non-romantic love means to them. And today my special guest is David Horne, and he funded Add Then Multiply. Hi, David.
Hi, Audrey. Wonderful to meet you now.
Nice to see you. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I was born and raised in Vancouver in Canada. And I trained to become a chartered accountant or a CPA if people are listening in the US, with PwC, and moved with them from Vancouver to Zurich, Switzerland in 1987. Initially on a 2-year contract. As I like to say, my wife and I had been married for 4 years at that stage, so we sold off what few possessions we had, packed our clothes into 4 suitcases, got on board an airplane with a 2-year employment contract and one-way tickets, and that was 38 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
So we ended up staying in Switzerland for 6 years, and then we moved to London, and I was working with some big blue chip corporates. And then I worked between 2000 and 2010. I worked with some sort of more medium-sized companies. I was the chief financial officer of 2 companies listed on the stock exchange here in London.
My.
And then at the end of 2010, I got sick of corporate world and launched my own business, and I've been doing that ever since.
Could you tell us about your own business? And you mentioned the face
Yes.
mythology.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. My business is called Add Then Multiply, which is also the name of my book. Add Then
Yay.
Multiply. And basically, it takes what I learned in that mainly that 10-year period where I was the CFO of the 2 listed companies and 1 private company. And I learned all about fundraising and mergers and acquisitions. And I took what I learned and adopted it for more entrepreneurial businesses, which is
Mm,
the kind of people that I'm working with ever since I launched my own business. And then a subset of what I do, which is linked to funding, came about shortly after my book was published. I was speaking at an event and about fundraising for small businesses. And a woman came up and asked me why so little funding went to female founders. And I said to
ah,
her, I have no idea, but I'll find out. And what I found out shocked me, led me to write my second book, Funded Female Founders. They're
okay.
both available on Amazon. And I launched a social enterprise to support female founders in scaling their companies and raising funding.
Mm.
And my Add Then Multiply company, we support all entrepreneurial businesses with a focus on growing their businesses through making sure their finance teams are strong and building up their capability, and then ultimately raising capital and buying other companies.
Wow. And what made you want to shift from working in the corporate world and then with entrepreneurs? And also, what are the reasons that a lot of the companies that women run have trouble raising funds?
2 very good questions. In all honesty, Audrey, I burned out in corporate world. I was the CFO of a company of a listed auction business, and in the spring of 2008, we found out that our largest global competitor was up for sale. So we raised $28 million and went out and bought them, and put the 2 companies together. We had been in 16 countries. By the time this deal was done, we were in 23 countries around the world. We came back to the markets. We said everything that we set out in the prospectus we've done. It's all looking good. And a week later, Lehman Brothers went bust, and the whole global financial crisis unfolded.
Yikes.
6 months and 4 profit warnings later, the chief executive got fired. It wasn't his fault, but somebody had to go. I threw my hat in the ring, but the board decided to go with someone from the outside, and he and I from day one just did not get on. And I knew that the board having decided to go for an outside person rather than me,
Yeah.
if there was ever going to be a boardroom fight, I was going to lose. And so,
No.
so I stuck around, made sure the company was on a sound footing, and then sat down with the chairman one day and said, "Look, this is just not working. Let's have a grown-up conversation." And I left to do my own business. As for why the funding isn't going to female founders, this has been a problem. There are statistics dating back to 2008 that show the level of venture capital funding by gender. And in the United States, the level of VC funding to all female teams has never been more than 3%. In the UK and Europe, it's never been more than 2%. And I've done a lot of research around that, interviewed a lot of people when researching and writing the book. And to me, it boils down to three things. Number one, inherent gender bias.
Mm.
Things are a lot better than they were in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, but it's still gender bias is still alive and well. Number two, there aren't enough women in investment decision making roles inside the venture capital firms. It's still a very male dominated environment. And even for those women who are inside in those roles, they've had to adapt their behavior. There was a fascinating study done by a woman who is now a professor at London Business School. She did her PhD at Columbia University in New York, and she downloaded all of the video presentations from the TechCrunch Startup Battle New York City pitching competitions over a period
Well,
from 2010 until 2017. And she analyzed all of the pitches and all of the Q&A sessions, and she found no material difference between the way men and women pitched, but she found a huge bias in the kinds of questions that were asked by the investors. 67% of the question asked of male entrepreneurs were what's called a promotion question. How are you going to double your market share? Where are you going to hire your next 100 employees? And 66% of the questions asked of female entrepreneurs were what's called prevention questions. How are you going to stop your competitors from stealing your customers? What if some of your key employees leave?
that's
And and
crazy.
and what was really interesting was that both male and female investors showed the same bias in their questioning. And then the third issue is that the venture capital industry is fixated on finding the next unicorn companies, the next companies that are going to be worth $1 billion. And many women that I've spoken to don't want to build $1 billion company. You know, they're happy building a company for 50 or 100 million that's going to make an impact, that's going to create a community, that's going to give employment to lots of people, that's going to support families and
Mm,
do good in the world, as opposed to just becoming this massive thing. So
yes.
it's the combination of those three things, to my mind, that are still leading to the statistics being as bad as they are. And they're really, when you look at the lines, they're not moving.
And what are you hoping to do because you've purposefully made steps to contribute to rebuilding that?
Yeah, I'm doing what I can. I tried 2 years ago to launch a fund, but I wasn't able to get the funding in place. The regulatory environment for running a fund is pretty horrendous in terms of compliance. And we weren't able to raise the level of money that would have made economic sense because of the compliance costs. I was looking to raise 100 million. I
Mm,
got soft commitments for 2.5, and I would have burned through the 2.5 million in 3 years just dealing with the compliance. I wouldn't have been able to invest anything. So I just said, no, the time is not right. I'll come back one day, but the time wasn't right at the time. So I'm a very outspoken person. I speak a lot at events around these issues. My social enterprise runs educational events supporting women. My Add Then Multiply consultancy, interestingly, I didn't deliberately set out to do it, but 9 of my top 10 clients have female founders in their teams.
is that how you met Lucy from Book Magic AI?
I met Lucy in 2016, so before this had happened. Yeah.
How did you get involved with Book Magic AI?
When I met Lucy, I was going through a program called Key Person of Influence, run by a chap called Daniel Priestley,
Yes.
who runs an organization called Dent Global. And I went through their flagship KPI program. It was a 9-month business accelerator. And Dan was very interested when I got up and presented what I do and my whole FACE methodology. And about 3 weeks after the program ended, Dan rang me up. And I've been the chief financial officer of his company on a fractional basis for the last 9 years. And one of the first things that we did when I joined was to buy Lucy's company, Rethink Press. Um, when we launched Book Magic, they asked me to be the CFO of that business and to manage all the financing and the fundraising. which is how we
Oh, that's so fascinating. And have you used book magic?
a little bit, personally, a little bit. I have 2 books in 2 I have 2 more books in my head, and I keep
Okay.
switching back and forth over which one I'm gonna write. I know I've just gotta sit down and just do it. So I've used it a little bit, but I haven't used it to its full extent. But I know lots of people who have. Have you?
I tried a little bit a few months ago and I was blown away. Like, oh, they're so good.
Yeah, it's a really cool tool.
When you were writing the two books you already published, what was the process like?
Very different. So my first book was a download of everything that was in my brain. It was based on my experience over that 10-year period when I was doing all of the fundraising. So it was just literally taking what was in my head and getting it down on paper. And it took me about 3 months to write. And then it was about 3 months going through editing and changes and feedback from beta readers and things like that. The second book required 18 months of research. And then
That's a
again,
long time.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was interesting. The second book, the foreword is written by a woman called Cindy Gallop. She's a British woman who lives in New York, made her money in the advertising industry, and is now running a business called Make Love Not Porn. Um,
Oh, okay.
and and she's very outspoken on female founder issues. And we met through a mutual contact. And after a number of pitches by me, she agreed to write the foreword. And when I sent her the first draft of the book, she said, "No, you've not gone far enough. You need to go a lot farther than this." And so I went away. So I spent about 3 months researching. So I went away and then spent the next more than a year really drilling into my subject to make sure I really knew it and understood it. Because one of the biggest pieces of feedback I'd had, not just from Cindy, but from a number of other people, was that the worst thing I could have done would have been to produce a book that was basically mansplaining. And I've had tremendous feedback on the book that it hasn't done that.
Oh,
So it was worth the time.
it's quite a compliment. What is it like to get to know Dan personally and also working with him?
Super exciting. Dan and I get on really, really well. As I say, we've been working together for 9 years. Basically, between us for his company, we've bought, I think, 6 companies and sold 3. And we've done several spin-outs. Book Magic is one of them. So yeah, it's great fun. Dan's a real visionary. Dan comes up with some incredible ideas and kind of says, right, this is what we want to do. And we sit down and then he says, right, over to you, and you make it happen.
That's great. So let's switch gear. And what is non-romantic love to you?
What is non-romantic love to me? Well, love to me. So I used to be a very black and white kind of guy. There was life and there was death and all that. And then in 2012, my father died suddenly due to an accident, and I was at his bedside when he actually died. And that was a real spiritual awakening for me. And the whole concept of love changed completely. So I believe that love is the spiritual energy that connects everything in the universe. Non-romantic love, I've got my wife, that's romantic love, but we have 2 daughters who are grown up now. That's non-romantic love, that's your children. I have 2 little grandchildren. That just takes love to another level. Love is the most powerful emotion, the most powerful feeling. It's one of the core values of my company. So we really focus on making sure that we love the people we work with, that we love the clients we work with, that we love the kind of stuff that we do, because that just makes it worthwhile.
And you've been married for a long time.
40
What's the secret?
I always I always say 2 things. Number 1, love is a verb, not a noun. You have to work at it. And number 2, never go to bed when you're still mad at each other. If you've been having an argument or something like that, don't go to sleep when you're still mad at each other. Figure it out, sort it out, have a kiss, have a cuddle, and then go to sleep.
Even when you're tired, you need to talk it
Absolutely.
out. Okay.
Absolutely. You need to, because otherwise you both go to bed and you have bad dreams and you sleep badly, and then you wake up in the morning and you're still mad at each other.
No, and raising children and also having grandkids, What's the main difference between having your own children and then having grandchildren?
So with your own children, you're responsible for them. You're responsible for every aspect of them. With grandchildren, you have one job, and that's to love them. So it's a
Yeah.
lot easier.
Okay. And what have your grandchildren taught you recently?
So my grandson Ben is 3. He has taught me just the joy of life and the joy of new discovery. He's a very inquisitive little guy, and he loves to find out new things, and he loves to read stories and learn things, and just very inquisitive. And he's at that age where why is one of his favorite questions. And I remember
Mm,
when I was a parent and why kept coming up, and I was like, not again. And now I do my best to just try and answer. And sometimes I have to say, Benny, I don't have the answer.
mm.
Um, but I try my best. And my granddaughter Rose, she's 1, and she's just delightful. They've been visiting us recently, and there was one morning I got up and she just cuddled on my shoulder for about 10 minutes.
Mm,
And I just thought that is just the purest expression of love.
that sounds so beautiful. And are they all in the UK?
They're all in the UK. Yeah. Yeah. So my older daughter, who has the 2 kids, they live on the Isle of Wight, which is just off the south coast. It takes about 3 hours to get there. You have to drive down and then take a ferry over. And my younger daughter just got married last year, and she lives about 3 miles away from me in London.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Was it difficult for you to accept that they were getting married as a father?
No,
No?
no, actually, no. It was really lovely, and I think one of the most rewarding things about being a parent is seeing your own children going out into the world and carving their own lives out. We gave them skills and knowledge and values and love, but we can't live their lives. Both of my daughters are married, they're in careers, they own their own homes. They have large mortgages, but that's life. They're making their own paths in the world, and that's a wonderful thing to observe.
That sounds really wonderful indeed. And how come you and your wife chose to raise the kids in the UK instead of, say, moving back to Canada or somewhere else?
The longish answer to that question is I first came to Europe on a family holiday when I was 12.
Mm,
It was the mid 70s, and I fell in love with London. And I was fascinated but frustrated when we toured around on the continent. I was here with my parents. We did a tour. We went through France, Germany, Switzerland, and Holland, as well as the UK. And I was fascinated because everything was so different. The cars were different, the architecture was different, the clothing was different, the food was different. But I was frustrated because I couldn't communicate. And then I went back and I started in high school. And in the English speaking part of Canada, when you go into high school, you start learning French. And
okay.
all my friends were going, "I gotta learn French." And I was like, no, but if there's the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre and Paris. So language for me was a big deal. And then when I went into my second year of high school, I had the opportunity to pick up another language. And the choice was either German or Spanish. I'd never been to Spain, but I'd been to Germany. So I
Mm,
picked German. And Audrey, you know how when you're growing up and going to school, you have 1 or 2 teachers who've really had an impact on your life?
absolutely.
My German teacher was one of those, and
Mm,
she was tough as nails.
okay.
I used to jokingly say that she must have descended from she was tough as nails, but man, did you learn. And once you demonstrated that you were learning and were making the effort, she went above and beyond to really help you progress. And I
Mm.
ended up going to university, and I did half of my degree in German. And
What?
yeah,
Half of it in German.
yeah,
Okay.
I have a degree in economics and German.
Mm.
And when I trained with PwC, I said to them, "Look, when I qualify, I want to work in a German-speaking office." And one day I got an offer to move to their Zurich office. And
So cool.
I had always wanted to come back to Europe. I had fallen in love with Europe. Europe is incredible. I love Vancouver. We go back every summer for a holiday.
Yes.
The great thing about London is it's a major financial center globally. You got sort of London and New York and Tokyo are the three big ones. So with the nature of the work I do, being in a major financial center is attractive. The son and wife of one of my very dear friends were visiting us recently here in London, and they were doing a holiday for 3 weeks. And I think they went to 6 countries in 3 weeks and just, boom, 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 boom. And I know that that's what happens when you're in North America because it's a long way to come and you don't get long holidays. I mean, literally in 3 weeks' time, I'm jumping on an airplane and flying to Copenhagen in the morning to speak at an event and then flying home in the afternoon and I'll be home for dinner.
That's great.
Everything's so close here.
For Europe and just the world in general, now there are a lot of people saying the financial collapse is coming. And with AI, there will be so many job losses. What are your views on that?
I think the AI industry is in a huge bubble that one day is going to burst. It might be tomorrow, it might not be for 2 years, but there's no question in my mind that we're on a repeat of what happened in the dot-com boom. We're on a repeat of what happened in the 1600s with the Dutch tulip crisis, and there have been similar things. There has been an insane amount of money invested in AI, and there was an infographic that came out on social media recently that was showing kind of 5 or 6 companies: OpenAI, Microsoft, Nvidia, Oracle, and a couple of others, and how much money is circulating around in that little bubble sphere,
Yeah.
and valuations are going up and 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 up. And one day, all it's going to take is somebody pulls one card out and the whole house of cards is going to fall. When that's going to
Mm.
be, I don't know. Like I say, it could be tomorrow. It could be in 2 years. It could be in 5 years. I don't know. But I think there is an awful lot of money piling into AI. And it's kind of like it's the next digital gold rush. In terms of
Mm.
the impact on people, I remember people saying the internet was going to take everybody's job away. What happened in reality was some jobs went away, but an awful lot of new jobs came along. And I think we'll see the same thing. And my advice to people, particularly to younger people in the earlier stages of their careers, is look, this is a major turning point. Go back to the Industrial Revolution. 250 years ago, the invention of the steam engine was a major turning point. And then the invention of the internal combustion engine. Oh, there were still people in 1910 saying cars will never replace horses. Well, we know how that's gone. But you know, so definitely some jobs are going to go, but an awful lot of new jobs are going to come. And so my advice to anyone who's worried about that is learn whatever you can about AI. You're in Hawaii, a beautiful place for surfing. You get some amazing waves in Hawaii. AI
Yeah.
is just another great big wave coming along. You can either learn how to surf and ride that wave, or you can get wiped out by it. And really, it's your choice. But if you don't do anything, you're going to get wiped out.
Well said. For people who want to become entrepreneurs, what's your advice, especially for females?
My advice is if you really believe in yourself and your ability, go for it. But if you're starting out your career, and it's really interesting. A lot of people think, oh, all entrepreneurs are really young. That's really not the case. I mean, lots of entrepreneurs are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's never too late to come into it. But if you're early in your career, I would actually recommend that rather than going out and starting on your own when you've not been in the world of business before, go and work for an entrepreneur for a couple of years and learn everything you can from them. Learn about the mistakes, learn about the opportunities, learn about all those things while somebody's paying you, and then
Mm,
go out into the world and have a go at it yourself.
yeah.
Because, one of the things about starting a business is literally you're responsible for everything. So if you've never been in business before, it can be a scary place. My very clear advice to anyone, particularly if they're early in their career, is go and work for an entrepreneur and learn everything you can for a few years. And then see where it goes from there.
That's what Dan mentions a lot as well.
I agree with Dan completely. That's what he did. That's what he
Yes.
did at the age of 19. He worked for an Australian entrepreneur. And you probably know the story, but he said after a couple of years, I went to him and said, I want equity in the company. And the guy said, go away. If you
No.
want to have equity in the company, it's time for you to launch your own business. And he did.
When you work with high net worth individuals, what have you learned about them? Do they have something in common?
They're all human beings. They all have the same issues and problems. They just happen to have a lot of money. I've met people who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and they wake up every day terrified that they're going to lose it all. You know,
Wow, that's not
um,
a great place to
it,
be.
I suppose, I'm 63 now, so
Mm.
I've been working for more than 40 years.
You look
And
great.
thank you. Thank you. I've worked with all manner of people. I've met really, really wealthy people. I've met people on the edge of the poverty line. And we're all human beings. We all have the same base needs and wants. It's just sometimes some of them were in the right place at the right time with the right set of skills, or were willing to take the right risk and ended up, making a ton of money. It
Mm.
doesn't make them better or worse human beings. In fact, I saw something on social media today where Billie Eilish was having a go at a room full of billionaires because they were greedy bastards.
Okay.
And she was saying, it's not enough to drip feed little bits into charity. And she announced that she was giving away, I think, half of the money that she'd made from her latest album to support charitable causes and things like that. There's different approaches. I'm a big fan of Warren Buffett. He has pledged to give 99% of his wealth away when he dies. I love the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Mm.
They poured a vast amount of their wealth into that, and you look at the changes that they've done in global healthcare. They've nearly wiped out malaria. They've done a huge amount supporting, diseases that have ravaged people, particularly across the developing world. The really, really high net worth people who are doing things, that's great. I think everybody has the ability to do something. Within my company, we give 1% of our annual sales to charitable organizations that are supporting two of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Ours are Goal 4, which is quality education, and Goal 5, which is gender equality.
Wow, that's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing those.
My pleasure.
As we wrap up the conversation, are there other things that you would like to share?
I mean, life is a journey, and, every day you wake up in the morning, you should be grateful that you're here on the planet for another day of being alive.
Absolutely.
And because you never know, we all know one thing for sure, and that is that one day we are all going to die.
Mm.
So let's enjoy this precious gift every day that we have it. Sometimes you'll have a good day and sometimes you'll have a bad day, but tomorrow's another day.
Mm.
And just keep going. Just keep going.
Thank you. And I have two more questions. One is if you can choose to be an animal or another sentient form for one day, what would that be and why?
I would be an eagle.
Why eagle?
So where I grew up in Canada, when you went out of the city, there were loads of eagles, and they're just the most magnificent birds. And to watch them soaring high above. And one particular memory that's just burned into my brain, the older of my two older sisters has a summer house on a lake in the middle of Vancouver Island, and it's like 20 miles from the nearest town. So it's really quite remote and very beautiful. And my wife and my other sister and I were out kayaking on the lake, and a
Okay.
bald eagle came down, swooped down, and just above the surface of the lake, and reached in with its talons and picked up a salmon and flew off. And this
That's
this was like this
precision.
was like 20 feet away from us. That was just magnificent. And that just to me reinforced, yeah, I'd be an eagle because eagles are they're a majestic bird. They soar
Mm.
high over things and they kind of watch what's going on. And then when they're ready to hunt, down they come.
I can picture it as you were describing what you saw. My favorite part is can you leave a gift for me and the viewers, which is a question for us to contemplate on.
Given the theme of this podcast is love, the question to contemplate on is I can't remember where it came from, but someone said to me recently, the next time someone does something bad to you, whether that's cutting you off in traffic or bumping into you in a crowd or whatever like that, uh, instead of being angry, just think this person needs more love.
Mm,
Can I how can I pass love out to them?
mm,
Because love is just so much nicer than hate and anger. You know,
yes.
the vibrational frequency of love is up here and hate and anger are down here.
Mm,
But how can we express more love to our fellow human beings? That's the
mm, that's beautiful. They remain curious about what's happening or what happened to them.
yeah, yeah. And it's something that we need a lot more of in the world because the world is becoming more and more divisive.
Yes. Are you hopeful?
Absolutely, 100% I'm hopeful because the alternative just doesn't bear thinking about.
Mm. Great. Well, thank you so much, David, for your time.
Thank you,
I'm
Audrey.
so glad for your sharing.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Okay.
Aloha.
Aloha.